Welcome back to the channel, this tactical intellectual channel. We have a new segment that I'm rolling out. It's called Scholar's Corner, and the scholar I want to highlight is David Mac Ritchie. Now, why am I starting off with David Mac Ritchie or Mac Ritchie? Well, I recently had a commenter leave a comment and we had a discussion here. But first of all, man, check out this commenter right here. This is definitely a troll account. I know my subscriber count is low, but look at his, man, 2. But you know, it's definitely a sock puppet account. So let's go ahead and look at this conversation that me and the troll had. So now, this entire conversation was done under the video presentation regarding Swarthy place names. So we're just gonna check out this screenshot, and he just leaves the comment wrong. So then I ask, okay, what is wrong and how so? So he leaves like a JSTOR article that is basically referring to a white person as Swarthy. So he's like, yeah, there you go, case closed. So I'm just like, not so fast. So I told him I have videos entitled Proper Etymology Part 1, Swarthy Surnames Uno, and Swarthy Surnames Extra. I basically told him, hey man, check that out, because you can't just discount the source that I use in my presentations. And I told him, hey, I accept yours as valid, because at a certain point, something called semantic broadening and I guess semantic reduction, they probably took place during that time, but I'm just saying, hey, it's no surprise that a white person will probably be referred to as Swarthy around that time also. So he basically says, so why is it when you read a book and see the descriptor Swarthy, you automatically assume that the person was black? Having dark features is normal in white people. I'm not sure what point you are trying to make. So I'm like, okay, so I'm seeing what's going on here, so I'm gonna have some fun too. So basically I said, hey, I don't automatically assume. I have to know what point in time we're referring to. And so then I asked him, I was like, basically, hey, is this gonna be a one-way interaction where you just grill me and ignore all the inquiries that I ask to you? And then I was like, hey, this channel is all about providing heavy evidence to whatever subject I am dealing with. And I basically told him that European history is what I am dealing with right now. So I told him, hey man, before you try to debate me, at least know what topics I've already spoken of, and just do your due diligence and be aware of my content. So when I told him that the burden of proof is on him, I'm talking about, hey, you came to my channel asking me things without doing your proper research and preparing to debate. So I don't owe you anything. You owe yourself to be prepared, because I made these video presentations, man. I'm not about to write everything in comment form and link everything that I have in my video presentations when I can just speak it out and show it in video format. So I basically told him, yeah, I'm gonna throw him a bone, because I really haven't spoken in depth on what he's talking about. So basically he just ignores everything I said, and because he's gonna tell me, you know what I mean? So he would say, his response was, I would suggest that using David Mac Ritchie as a source isn't particularly heavy evidence, though none of Mac Ritchie's sensationalist claims have any basis in scientific fact. So he says that the burden of proof is on me. So this is what I remember here. Before he gave me that reply, I was telling him, I was giving him like Vernol, Griffith Taylor, Bede, I had all these anthropologists down, and he ignores all of that because he's doing a Google search to try to debunk anyone. So he just keys in on David Mac Ritchie because that Google search that he did and the Wikipedia article that he read mentioned fairies and mythology and stuff. So I basically told him, I was like, man, you did a Google search and Wikipedia search, so now you want to pretend like your statement is original to your own, thought process when it's, you're parroting something. So I asked the guy, why do you ignore the other anthropologists and only focus on, David Mac Ritchie? And, I'm like, yo, you're trying to discredit him. When you read the articles on Mac Ritchie, it does seem like you have something that you can hit on. It seems that way, but it only seems that way when you're skimming over and not rereading and just being thorough in what you're taking in. So what's his reply? He says, I'm the one who wants to discredit. I'm not the one questioning well-established fact with pseudo-history and science fiction. So yeah, I knew I had him then. I had him then. So this is what I said. I'm like, hey man, thanks for your comment. It makes for good content for another presentation. And then I just told him, I'm like, hey man, the issue with you is that you're lazy and too eager to debunk. I said you glanced on David Mac Ritchie's wiki or Wikipedia and thought that you had hit on something, not knowing that one of David Mac Ritchie's field of study was euhemerism. I'm telling him, euhemerism isn't the actual belief in mythology like that. So I told him to get his weight up and the conversation's over. So he said, it's not my fault your source writes about the existence of fairies and dwarfs. I'm perfectly permitted to point that out when it's you who is contesting anything. The guy's a moron, to be honest with you. He doesn't know a field of study, man. You got people that study language and everything, like dead languages. So with somebody who's speaking English, would they try to debunk them that dead language even existed? No, man. Euhemerism, he doesn't even know what that is, man. And I told him, but he still can't help some of these people. But teaching moment. This is a teaching moment. So here we go. So now we're gonna check out and see who this guy David Mac Ritchie really is. Okay, so we're on Wikipedia and it says basically David Mac Ritchie was born April 16th, 1851, died January 14th, 1925. So he was a Scottish folklorist and antiquarian. He proposed that stories of fairies originated with an aboriginal race that occupied the British Isles before Celts and other groups arrived. So that's what the guy's he's caught up on that. But it's a field of study. He doesn't get it. Euhemerism. We're gonna discuss that later, but let's check out the early life. So David Mac Ritchie was the younger son of William Dawson Mac Ritchie and Elizabeth Elder Mac Ritchie. Don't have the mother's maiden name, so just go with that. He was born in Edinburgh and attended the Edinburgh Southern Academy, the Edinburgh Institute, and the University of Edinburgh. He did not gain a degree but qualified as a chartered accountant. His father had been a surgeon in the East India Company. So now, career as a folklorist. In 1888, Mac Ritchie founded the Gypsy Lore Society to study the history and lore of gypsies. He was also a member of several folklore societies. In 1914, he joined the Council of the Society of Antiquaries of Scotland, serving as vice president from 1917 through 1920. He was noted for his interest in archaeology, being appointed as a trustee for Lord Abercrombie's endowment for an archaeology department at the University of Edinburgh. He was also a member of the Scottish Arts Club and vice president of the Philosophical Institution. From 1922 until his death, he served as the treasurer of the Scottish Anthropological and Folklore Society. Now here's the point of contention right here: fairy euhemerism. Now David Mac Ritchie was a prominent proponent of the euhemeristic origin of fairies, a theory traceable to the early 19th century that considers fairies in British folklore to have been rooted in a historical pygmy, dwarf, or short-sized Aboriginal race that lived during Neolithic Britain or even earlier. Now, let us pivot and check out the article on euhemerism. Okay, it's on the screen now. Euhemerism is an approach to the interpretation of mythology in which mythological accounts are presumed to have originated from real historical events or personages. Euhemerism supposes that historical accounts become myth as they are exaggerated in the retelling, accumulating elaborations and alterations that reflect cultural mores. It was named for the Greek mythographer Euhemerus, who lived in the late 4th century BC. In the more recent literature of myth, such as Bulfinch's mythology, euhemerism is termed the historical theory of mythology. I'm going to stop there. You guys get the point. Euhemerism is basically historical theory of mythology. It basically goes into examining myths and lore and just picking out the exaggerations in the retelling and the elaborations and alterations that that culture put into it. But basically the gist of it is that you're taking mythological accounts that originated from real historical events or people or persons. Okay, back to the David Mac Ritchie deep dive. So now under the origins part, it says Mac Ritchie is often credited with being the founder of the euhemerist school regarding British fairies. However, historian Edward J. Cowan has noted that the folklorist John Francis Campbell first founded this school of thought about 30 years before Mac Ritchie. Carol G. Silver, professor of English at Yeshiva University, has also traced the euhemerist theory of fairies further back to Walter Scott in his letters on demonology. With the emergence of anthropological schools in the late 19th century, various renowned anthropologists such as Edward Barnett Tyler became proponents of the euhemeristic origins of fairies, in direct conflict with the religious or psychological theories of their origin. So in the theory part, we're not going to read all that. We're just going to skim it. But it's basically saying fairy euhemerism, as developed by Mac Ritchie, attempts to rationally explain the origin of fairies in British folklore. Hold on, let's stop right there. He's attempting to rationally explain the origin of fairies in British folklore. Whereas that other guy who's the troll, he's misrepresenting David Mac Ritchie's stance. He's thinking that Mac Ritchie, instead of trying to rationally explain the origin of fairies in British folklore, he's trying to rationally explain the origin of fairies, period. So Mac Ritchie's entire field of study is this right here. Let's continue reading that sentence. Okay, well, we're gonna start at the top again, and it says fairy euhemerism, as developed by Mac Ritchie, attempts to rationally explain the origin of fairies in British folklore and regards fairies as being a folk memory of a small-statured pre-Celtic race, or what Tyler theorized as possible folk memories of the original Aboriginal people of Britain. There it is. Nothing more, nothing less. Now let's check out more of this Wikipedia article. This part under support, it says Mac Ritchie's rationalization of fairies as having their basis as a historical population of diminutive size won over much support from anthropologists from the late 19th century who questioned the religious or psychological origin of fairies. A notable proponent of the theory who had read Mac Ritchie's earlier works published in the Celtic Review was Grant Allen, who became convinced that fairies were modeled on an indigenous population of Britain, specifically the Neolithic long barrow makers. The archaeologists William Boyd Dawkins found Mac Ritchie's views also appealing, since in his early Man in Britain and his place in the tertiary period, he considered Upper Paleolithic culture across Europe, including Britain, to have been founded by a proto-Eskimo or Lap race. Okay, so we're gonna drop down a little bit. So it says, among folklorists who considered, supported, or praised Mac Ritchie's views were Lawrence Gome or Gome, who in 1892 published Ethnology and Folklore, which argued folklore preserved a strong racial history of conquered or replaced indigenous peoples. The folklorist Charles G. Leyland, who positively reviewed Mac Ritchie's book, The Testimony of Tradition, 1890, wrote, "The book should be of exceptional interest to every folklorist, both on account of its subject matter and also on account of the matter or the manner in which it is treated." So now let's look at the criticism or criticisms levied against Mac Ritchie. It says, Mac Ritchie's theories of fairies sparked criticism from proponents of the religious or psychological origin of fairies. Walter Evans Wentz strongly criticized Mac Ritchie's theory in his The Fairy Faith in Celtic Countries, 1911. This prompted Mac Ritchie to respond to such criticisms in several articles published in the Celtic Review. It was mostly, however, Mac Ritchie's theory that the Picts were a dwarf or short-statured race, which was strongly rejected. Most historians of the day rejected Mackenzie's pygmy Pict theory. T. Rice Holmes, for example, mocked Mac Ritchie's claims, considering them eccentric and baseless, since no archaeological evidence had ever been proven of a race of pre-Neolithic or even prehistoric pygmies existed in this country. Critics attempted to pick holes in Mac Ritchie's claims on mythology. For example, Evans Wentz noted that the Fianna of Irish myth are sometimes described as giants. Mac Ritchie acknowledged these criticisms in his own writings, but attempted to work around them and provide solutions. In regarding the Fians as a race of dwarfs, I do not overlook the fact that they are also spoken of as giants, but to assume them to have been of gigantic stature is both totally at variance with the bulk of the evidence regarding them, and the variance with the fact that the word giant has very frequently been used to denote a savage or a cave dweller. And therefore, in Mac Ritchie's views, the Irish myths and folkloric accounts which describe the Fianna as giants only did so in a non-literal figurative sense to describe their savage nature and not size. This idea was later expanded upon in his The Savage of Gaelic Tradition, 1920, yet was not well received by contemporary folklorists. However, ancient authors such as Macrobius shared Mac Ritchie's beliefs that the giants of mythology were not giants in size but huge in impiety and primitiveness. According to Mac Ritchie, there was also two Pictish races. The former were the Aboriginal dark Lappish or Ainu race, while the latter white-skinned, red-headed group invaded them, who he considers the Caledonians. Okay, we're gonna do more on the Caledonians and clear that up too, but you see, David Mac Ritchie, he's not a proponent that, he's not trying to argue that fairies and all these people, these mythical figures existed. He's basically saying that they're based off of via word of mouth, that they were real people, real populations, but then exaggerations happened, things started being added to them to add to the lore, and they became something totally different from the original people or original account of the person. So, as you say, I mean, you can see that troll, he was just being a troll and trying to discredit. He couldn't discredit the other anthropologists, but he thought he hit on something. He really didn't. He didn't understand what euhemerism is. It's a field of study. So you see, I couldn't match, or I don't want to match that guy's eagerness. I don't know what that troll was thinking right there. You know, we put him on the back of the milk carton anyway. I mean, his mind, you know, what he doesn't have a brain. You know, he needs to verify before he reply, because I mean, otherwise you look like an adult. Whoever sent him is probably pissed off, like, man, you fool, you making him look good now, you doltish. You know, that's probably what he's thinking. There you go. That's the end of this portion here. And, you know, Scholars Corner. You know, we're gonna have more scholars. You're gonna see the credentials of these guys. All right, guys, take care.